Many of us have difficulties with comma and semicolons and have never really had a class that specifically taught grammar. Hopefully this video will help you work on those skills.
Why are commas so important? Well, when you write your essay and you revise and revise and you just get used to the sentences and you know what you intend to say. Unfortunately, when I read your essay, I do not know what you intend to say. I only know what you actually wrote on the paper. So if there are several comma mistakes in a paragraph, then that really can affect your clarity. So here are 3 incorrect sentences or phrases that just to kind of show you how a comma can change the meaning of your sentence. So the first one, the panda eats, shoots, and leaves. So this sentence is actually saying that this is Rambo panda and it's eating, it's shooting, and then it's leaving the area. Well, of course, that's not what it intends. It intends to say the panda eats bamboo shoots and leaves. So there should be no commas in this sentence. The next one, party on people. This phrase is intending to say to continue to party. However, what it's actually literally saying is you're partying on top of an actual person. The next one, while eating, a rattlesnake approached our campsite. So of course, it's intending to say while eating, then a rattlesnake approached our campsite. But what it's saying without the comma after eating is that you're actually eating a rattlesnake. Okay, so let's start with introductory phrases. An introductory phrase is used as a comma to set off words, phrases, and clauses that come in front of an IC. An IC, by the way, is a complete sentence. So if you know how to type, learning a word processing program is easy. So if you know how to type is the introductory phrase. Notice that it's in the beginning of the sentence. Notice that it's not a complete sentence. And you kind of take a little gap when you read it, a little pause. So if you know how to type, learning a word processing program is easy. Now sometimes an introductory phrase is long, but sometimes it's just one word. Sort of like a transitional word, like surprisingly, comma, the old car started up on the first try. The next one is called a series. This is when you use commas between 3 or more items in a series. It's basically a list. So if you have 2 or less, then you don't use commas. So we need chips, comma, soft drinks, comma, and deviled eggs for the picnic. She made tuna, comma, peanut butter and jelly, comma, and ham and cheese sandwiches. If you're going to learn one comma rule today, please make it this one. It's called a 2IC rule, which means 2 independent clauses, which means 2 complete sentences. It's when you use a comma in front of a coordinating conjunction, which is also called a fanboy, that joins 2 complete sentences. So here, my father was trying to fix a roof leak. That's a complete sentence. He fell and hurt his back. That's a complete sentence. It has a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. So we're combining those 2 complete sentences with a comma and. That's correct. The next one, Nancy admired the beautiful guitar. That's a complete sentence. She couldn't buy it because it cost too much. That's a complete sentence. It's combined by the comma and but. So that's correct. What happens a lot, even with really good writers, is you take out the second subject, such as in the example at the bottom, and it no longer needs a comma. So here, Nancy admired the beautiful guitar but couldn't buy it because it cost too much. There's no she before the couldn't. So that takes the subject out. So therefore, you would not have a comma before but in this instance. It's a very sort of easy mistake to make. So this is one that I feel like even really good writers, even writers who are making A's on the essays, sometimes make a mistake. So an interrupter or erupt is another comma rule. And it comes across like it's a very easy to understand rule, but it's also a difficult one. So you basically use 2 commas to set off non-essential material in the middle of an IC. So Non-essential is the real key here. So, for example, the first one, my cousin Delmar, who works at IBM, drives a Corvette. So, if you take out everything between those two commas, it still makes sense. My cousin Delmar drives a Corvette. You don't really need to know where he works to know what he drives. It's extra information, and extra information is good because you want to make your sentences detailed. However, you want to use interrupters when you have this sort of information. This is helpful when you're sort of introducing an author. You know, Bob Jones, who is an engineer at NC State, said. So the other one is if you can also use sort of a transitional word or phrase. So the only requirement for admission, comma, I believe, comma, is a high school diploma or a GED. Seems easy, but let's wait until we see the next slide on how it can get confusing. So remember I told you that the non-essential information is important. So if it's essential, important information that you need for the clarity of the sentence, then you do not use an interrupter, you do not use those two commas. So here's an example. My neighbor who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day was just diagnosed with lung cancer. You might look at this and go, okay, I need to put a comma after neighbor and a comma after day. My neighbor was just diagnosed with lung cancer does make sense. That's true. But take a look at that who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day. Why do you need that? Why is that essential information? Well, because who smokes a pack a day is not extra information. It is important to understand why he or she may have been diagnosed with cancer. It gives you a reason. It also narrows down which neighbor that the subject is referring to. Otherwise, it could be any neighbor. You have several neighbors. So in this instance, it's not non-essential. It's not just extra details. It's important information. The next comma rule is a tag. This is very similar to an introductory phrase, the first comma rule that we learned, except it's at the end of the sentence. So you just sort of tag on some extra information at the end. Again, a tag is never a complete sentence, and it's always at the end of the sentence. So here, Mr. Larson gave generously to United Way, his favorite charity. His favorite charity is the tag. I was surprised that he bought our tickets. However is not only a transitional word, but it's also a tag in this sense. So this is how to use commas with a quote. You'll see that there are a lot of examples here that I'll let you take a look at. But I want you to learn that you're supposed to put punctuation to the left of quotation marks. Don't learn inside or outside of the quotation mark. That's not accurate. So the punctuation, a period, a comma, in most situations goes to the left of the quotation mark. So take a look. So for example, the third example down. My favorite actor, said Jane, is Brad Pitt. You'll notice that right after actor, the comma is to the left of the quotation mark, but it's inside. Then after Jane, it's to the left. The comma is to the left of the quotation mark, but it's outside the quotation marks. So that's the good rule. I always tell my students to think of Beyonce, to the left when it comes to this rule. So hopefully that'll help you out. This is a date and place rule. So in the first example, Raleigh, North Carolina is where I was born. I think most people remember the comma after Raleigh, but a lot of people forget that comma after North Carolina. The same instance with the date, March 21st, comma, 1984, comma is my sister's birthday. A lot of people remember that comma after the 21, but forget the comma after the year. This rule only pertains to if you have a date, the full date, so the month, the day, and the year. If you're just putting the month and the year, say, this does not pertain to that. The next one is a two adjective rule. It's when you have two adjectives describing a noun. So again, an adjective describes a noun. So he works in a clean, attractive office. Clean and attractive are adjectives. So a little hint with this is if you can put a and, A-N-D, between the two adjectives and it makes sense and not change the meaning of the sentence, then you would put a comma there. So here, he works in a clean and attractive office. Yes, that makes sense. So that's what you do. But here's an example when you wouldn't put a comma between the two adjectives. I love smooth, dark chocolate. So you might say, well, why doesn't that make sense? I love smooth and dark chocolate. Well, that actually changes the meaning of the sentence, because somebody who likes smooth dark chocolate might not necessarily like smooth, say, milk chocolate or white chocolate. So it changes the meaning. So in that instance, this can be a difficult rule. The last slide here is about semicolons. A lot of people use semicolons incorrectly, or they just try not to use them at all. And I think they can be very helpful, especially in your thesis statements. So there are two ways, essentially, to use a semicolon. The first way is that you must have two complete sentences, or ICs, on either side of that semicolon, and those two sentences should have, they should relate to each other. They shouldn't be two totally different subjects. So here, Santa brings gifts to good little boys and girls is a complete sentence. Naughty children get coal in their stockings instead. They're both about the same subject. They're both two complete sentences, so this is accurate. Another example, Bowen's Island is a tasty and popular seafood restaurant in Charleston. However, the restaurant can be a bit pricey and crowded. So here we have two complete sentences on either side of that semicolon. You also have a two adjective rule, tasty and popular, and you have a transitional word with an intro phase after however. So here we have 3 comma rules in one sentence. And this is used accurately. The last example is about semicolons, and it's used a lot less than the ones prior. But poor Veronica spent the morning cooking, cleaning, and washing, the afternoon running errands, grocery shopping, and studying, and this evening ironing, making lunches, and brushing the dog. So here you'll see that the semicolon is used differently. It's used to sort of break up a long series to make it easier for the reader to sort of understand what her day is like. Again, this is used a lot less frequently than the 2 examples above.